Hello and welcome to Undercommon Taste. This is a podcast where we create and discuss homebrew content for tabletop RPGs.
Now, if everyone had one, it wouldn't be special anymore, would it?
I'm Ian Woodworth. I'm joined by my co-host James Daly. And today we're going to get into some of the homebrew side of what we like to talk about here and do a little bit of world building conversation.
Yes, I brought the carbon.
It is going to be a conversation because I have literally nothing for tonight.
It's been a week.
It has.
For those that may not know, I actually started teaching this year. I'm teaching high school, and I'm almost done with my master's program. And we're hitting the end of the semester for my classes, and just my hands are full of everything.
Yeah, end of semester for teaching classes and taking classes simultaneously.
Yeah, double fun.
Yeah, and then on my side, I'm just getting over a sinus infection and a bunch of crud, and yeah, it's been a week.
Yes,
and so we needed to get an episode recorded, and so we are recording an episode.
Hey.
Hopefully it's a good episode.
Oh, of course it's going to be good. Our episodes are amazing. What are you talking about?
Well, and I do like the more organic conversational episodes personally. I think that we come up with some of our better ideas whenever and this is a lesson for everyone for GM and game prep, is whenever you don't prep as much, you tend to not go on a script and you end up coming up with better ideas.
Yeah, you tend not to railroad your characters, which was a huge lesson I had to learn as a DM.
Yeah. And, you can sort of tell when I made that sort of connection if you listen to our back catalog. When we got off of the much more regimented episodes and into some of the more free-form conversational stuff. But anyway, so the topic that we are going to be talking about tonight is fantasy settings with high prevalence of magic. Because
it's everywhere.
I don't know if you have noticed, but in most settings, especially most D&D settings, where you have adventurers capable of performing these great magical feats, magic is common amongst adventurers, but it is very rare everywhere else.
Yeah, I would probably say, like, in a D&D setting, it might maybe be, I don't know, maybe 1 in 50, 1 in 100, you think?
I was going to say the magic users are the 1% in D&D.
Yeah, they really are. Except for maybe the shopkeeps.
Yeah. Now, if the shopkeep is a magician,
yes.
Yeah, then all bets are off.
Right.
But yeah, so it's something that it's taken for granted that you have a town that's going to have 300 people in it, and you might have 2 magic users in town. You might have a large city that has a temple with a couple of low-level clerics or maybe a couple of paladins. Druids are probably going to be the most likely one that you're going to find a group of them together.
Yeah.
Because they are community-oriented in their design.
Yeah. I mean, the clerics would be too. You'll probably have like your high priest, and you might have like an acolyte or two that might have a cantrip and maybe a first level spell, like maybe a first level cleric or something along those lines for the acolytes.
Honestly, I think that most of the time, the defining line between when you're an acolyte and when you're a priest or an actual proper cleric is when you are able to actually cast spells.
Fair, very fair.
Because I would absolutely see that the church would be full of non-caster clergy.
Yeah.
And it's only the people who are able to develop a substantial enough connection to the divinity to manifest it as magical abilities who would be the upper echelons of the church.
Yeah, and I mean, that makes sense. That would be like, I mean, around here anyway, or just in the world, sure, your God's real. I mean, even delving back into my youth, going back to like the stories of Elijah, talking to the priest of Baal, is like, yeah, sure, you say you believe in God, but show me proof, and so they have the test where they try to channel fire from the sky, that kind of thing where, yeah, if you can channel your divinity or show a physical representation of your God's ability or power, then that's obviously going to just way better than someone who wouldn't. So yeah, you would definitely be in a higher position.
Right. So that is something that I've always thought about with my world building, and something that I always like to think about the implications of what does a world look like when a large portion of the population has access to at least a little bit of magic. My home game homebrew setting, magic is very prevalent. It is very common. You're going to have, 15-20% of the population of a town is going to be at least first or second level casters.
Yeah.
Most of the upper echelons of society are going to be individuals that have a decent amount of magical training. All of the military leaders in my games, all of the generals and commanders and such, they're all at minimum of 15th level PC classes. Okay. Because I want that emphasis on this is a very magic heavy setting. This is a setting where magic is prevalent, magic is powerful, and the people who are in control, who are, authority figures, they are people who have a great deal of control over the forces of the world. And almost all of them have at least a little bit of a connection to some caster class.
Now, when I think of this, and like I said, when I go and I'm like, I'm going to do a world build, or I'm going to take, I'm given a prompt of some sort, I default and start thinking about media I've consumed. And honestly, one of the closer ones to this, I think among like anime and stories wise, where everyone seems to have mostly some form of magical ability, would be something like Naruto, honestly. You have your clans and things like that, but even your regular people have at least some inkling of something generally. And I think the character's name's Brock, I think is correct. It's been forever since I've watched it. But it was the strange thing that this person has absolutely zero magical ability and is completely a physical character. And so with that, again, just seeing how those interact. Avatar: The Last Airbender, less so, but even still going with where you're saying that, your military leadership is going to have at least some magical ability generally. With an Avatar, most of your town leaderships or your city leaderships had some bending ability. And maybe not every person had bending ability, but it was so common for them that it was absolutely like, hey, let's go find a bender for this. Or if someone just started, throwing magic around, it's like, oh, okay, there's our bender for the day. Wave, go on, do your stuff.
Yeah, and, I've not actually watched Naruto. It was in its heyday before I had access to cable. So
fair.
And I've never gone back. There are so many animes that were pivotal to the development of my friend group in middle school and high school. Stuff like Naruto and Bleach and what were some of the other ones? Dragon Ball Z and Gundam Wing. Gundam Wing was another big one. And, I gleaned aspects of these shows. I've gleaned information from these shows with regards to, storyline and plot points and who the characters are and such. I've never watched any of them.
You have people like climbing the walls. No, I get it though. And especially like the late 90s, early 2000s, there was, I think that's where anime kind of hit its stride in US culture largely. And there was a glut, and there still is a glut, and there's a lot of stuff out there. And so you have anime, you have comics, you have manga. Honestly, I mean, looking at like Marvel and DC to a point, but if you want to take your mutant factors or your X factors or whatever your superhero powers are, it's more prevalent. It's not as super high, but again, within a lot of these comic universe or comic worlds or comic timelines, it's not uncommon to see someone wield magical or supernatural powers fairly easily. So again, it's not there as much, but it's still there enough that it is common.
Yeah. And you're going to also see this in media where it's like the magical schools like Hogwarts. Hogwarts is one of those settings where, yes, the mundane world exists outside of this world, but we're not focused on the mundane world in the Harry Potter series. We're focused on the wizarding world. Yeah. And in the wizarding world, everyone has at least a little bit of magical ability.
Yeah, that is a great example. Unfortunately, Rowling is trash human being, but again, as an example of a world that is a very high magic setting, that is a great way to do that. And I think that does spring off to a point is if everyone does have magic, one, how do people react to the magic? And then two, how does society form itself around magic? And I would, people being people, almost 1,000% suggest that you are going to start getting like these clans and these guilds and this social stratification depending on your ability, your usage, and even your type of magic.
Right. And not everybody is going to be capable of doing all magic.
Right.
And, there are definitely going to be individuals where, I mean, you see this a lot in different media where they're focused on the different elements of magic and how, let's take the Mistborn series, for example. It is very common for, well, I wouldn't say very common, but it is fairly common for the different magicians in the setting, the allomancers, to crop up, and the way that they power their magic is by consuming and burning metals. And so it is fairly easy for them to find allomancers who are capable of consuming and burning a single kind of metal. You'll have people who can burn tin. You can have people who can burn iron. You have people who can burn copper, those sorts of things. But having a Mistborn, which is someone who can burn all of the types of metal, that's very rare.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of the dichotomy that you would have between an NPC commoner who has access to a cantrip or two versus an adventurer who has access to first level spells and can progress with that.
Yeah. I mean, and again, world building, even going with your cantrip, maybe for, 90% and 99% of your world, maybe that cantrip is where the large majority of your people stop. And again, everyone jokes, well, if you could have one cantrip in the real world, what would it be?
Mending.
Maybe, yeah, maybe that exists in your world. And so when you start building this world, okay, so we're building a world. Yes, we want a magic heavy world. We want heavy magic. Magic's going to be everywhere. How much magic now? How is magic going to be used? So let's go ahead and put this down now. So everyone has access, or near everyone has access to at least cantrips?
Yeah, I'm going to say that, let's just say 75% of the population has access to at least a cantrip.
Okay. Now, are we going to pick a magic school these cantrips come from?
I don't know. I think that it would probably be, most of them are probably going to be more utility spells. Not to say that they can't be used offensively, but I think that most of the magic that you would run into would be utility spells. It would be things like Mage Hand, having something to help you pick up and carry things. It would be things like Prestidigitation to clean things or to season food, or things like Control Flames to make fires bigger, or to be a firefighter and put out house fires.
Those are great options.
Mending. So James and I were in a private game a while back with Matt and Eric from the Goblin's Corner and Mike Daniel from 19 Hits the Dragon, where Eric was running the game, and the rest of us, we were running a party of 4 clerics.
That was such a fun game.
It was an amazing game.
Yeah.
And my character, his name was Torvald the Tall. He was an orc cleric of Gond, I think it was. Is the gnome god of tinkering, basically. And that's what he was. He was a tinker. He walked from town to town with a portable forge on his back, and he just walked from town to town doing various repairs, fixing farm implements and sharpening scissors and just odds and ends, and just pursuing his service to his god in that particular way of being helpful to people. And, he was raised by gnomes. And so that was a whole thing in his backstory. He was raised by gnomes, so he didn't fit the stereotype of an orc in most D&D settings. And so people were always a little bit wary of him whenever he showed up. But you can only be so wary of a 7-foot-tall orc wearing a lemon yellow duster and cowboy hat.
Touch the Gordons, fisherman.
Yeah, pretty much.
What I like about this character though too is I don't know if you knew this historically, but this is very much how a journeyman blacksmith, once they finished their apprenticeship, sometimes they would get to work with their teacher if their skill was good enough. The teacher would be like, "Hey, you can work with me, and I'll give you a portion of the profits that you make, but you're using my shop and tools." But most of them, they would get their personal set of tools and then they would pack up and they'd look for and so yeah, they would travel town to town.
Yeah.
And they would mend pots and wagon wheels and tongues. Most blacksmiths didn't work in weapons or armor. They did farm implements, which again, going with your cantrips, speak to animals, speak to plants, would be great for your farming professions. Maybe they like a veterinarian or animal husbandry or a shepherd or a farmer being able to kind of cultivate these crops and kind of make sure your plant life goes well, or even decorative, like a florist would, I mean, again, talk to plants or, being able to get those to build up and grow really well would do amazing.
Well, I'm pretty sure Speak with Plants is like a first or second level spell.
Is Speak with Plants first level?
Yeah, it's not a cantrip.
Oh, okay. I thought it was. I thought you had a plant.
I've got the whole list of cantrips here in front of me.
List of cantrips. Okay, yeah, let's pull them
But
up.
talking about agriculture, mold earth.
Oh, absolutely.
Mold earth is a cantrip. Imagine being able to just walk out into your field and till up a 5-foot by 5-foot square of earth every 6 seconds with just concentration, with just focusing on, I want this area tilled, and it tills itself.
Forget tilling, irrigation.
Yeah, irrigation. You could dig an irrigation canal and irrigate an entire field in a day.
Yeah.
Just doing it, 5-foot sections at a time. If you had 4 or 5 people who were capable of doing it, you could knock it out in a couple of hours.
Yeah.
But just thinking about, if you had one person in a rural village who had access to the mold earth cantrip, at planting time, he just goes around and everybody pays him a certain set fee, and he just goes through and he tills your field for you. And then you follow through behind and you sow your crops for the year.
Absolutely. Druid Sense was the spell I was thinking of, by the way, where you can make things kind of grow.
Oh, Druidcraft?
Yeah.
Yeah, Druidcraft is a good one.
Yeah. But yeah, again, mold earth. And then 2, in the event that, your town, your settlement, whatever, comes under siege, they are absolutely constructing those with mold earth to build, earthen defenses and battlements. You absolutely better believe they're going to be building stone walls and berms and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, things like gust, there are numerous applications that I can think of where you might be able to implement utilizing a steady source of wind.
Yeah.
Powering bellows for a forge, winnowing grain, fanning flames if you don't have somebody who can actually control the fire, powering a windmill. If you have a day whenever the wind is down, but you need to grind some corn, you can use gust. It would take it a little bit of time to get it going, but you could utilize gust over and over and over again to power a windmill for a short period of time, however long you need to do it to grind, however much you needed to grind.
Yeah, that would make perfect sense. The other things I could think of, something like dancing lights would absolutely be in your taverns and your entertainment venues. Same thing with thaumaturgy. I think one thing that could be really, really interesting, guidance. Imagine guidance for sporting events and bookies. And I mean, honestly, doing anything, you go and you need just that little extra, bit of good luck or that extra little pep. You've got that test you got to do. You've got to get this task done, whatever it is you're taking, whatever that it's going to be a difficult thing. You're not 100% sure you can pull it off. And you go to the person that can cast guidance on you for the day.
Yeah, guidance would absolutely be one. Guidance would fall into the category of spells that would probably be controlled.
Yeah, I could see that. Especially, like I said, if you're doing betting events and something like that, there's a whole performance enhancing spell block.
Yeah.
It's actually, okay, yeah, so that brings us up to another thing. Are spells contraband? Do we have certain spells that you can only cast in certain times or you can't cast at all? So again, you have to be so old in American culture before you can drink alcohol or imbibe and talk, certain substances. Is it the same way
Get a
you can?
driver's license.
Yeah, yeah. So can you
I mean,
only
getting a
cast?
driver's license is probably closer to an analogous sort of thing than those examples.
Fair,
But
yeah,
yeah,
but what I was thinking is like even in sports, again, like you have your performance enhancing drugs, so you can cast things in certain things, but like, hey, we're at a sporting venue or doing things where money is changing hands, and so not to give an unfair advantage, magic is forbidden in these aspects.
I mean, I could also see basically you have two separate leagues.
Okay.
One is where nobody is allowed to use magic, and one is where you have magicians on the field
Ooh,
and the magician's abilities are part of the game.
I like it. I absolutely would sit down for that.
Yeah, because then it becomes whose magicians are better at providing boons to their teammates.
Absolutely, I love it.
Yeah. Another one that gets a lot of talk whenever people talk about one cantrip that you could have, one that hasn't come up yet, Spare the Dying.
Yeah,
Spare the Dying
absolutely.
is such a powerful cantrip.
It really is.
Especially the people who have Spare the Dying are almost inevitably going to get shoehorned into being like the paramedics of this
That's
world.
exactly what I was thinking. Some sort of like steampunk paramedic. You're coming in on like a gyro steam powered airship.
Yeah, and you do the action hero power slide
Yeah,
in and you that's the first thing that you do whenever you get on site is you find the victim that has gotten trapped under the horse cart, and the very first thing you do is you put a hand on their shoulder and you cast Spare the Dying so that they don't die on you while you're trying to extract them from under this toppled horse cart.
right. Yeah, absolutely. That 1000%. Every village, every town to find at least one of those people, if not more. Which does lead to another question, though. So, if everyone in this world can at least cast a cantrip, or at least a huge majority can at least cast a cantrip, how frequently can they cast that cantrip?
I mean, if we're going by D&D rules, they can cast it as many times as they want.
Right? But we're a
Um,
homebrew, and so we can make this up. So, I mean, does it cost them anything to cast it? Does it require energy? Does it require a certain amount of mental fortitude? Does it actually require material cost for them that they have to be able to put into casting their spell?
I mean, I would assume that it would provide some sort of physical or mental fatigue if you continually cast it,
Yeah,
because, you don't get something for nothing. That
generally.
there has to be
Equivalent exchange.
exactly. That's exactly where I was going, the law of equivalent exchange. And honestly, we say, like 75% of the people have access to cantrips. That's not saying that the other 25% aren't capable of casting magic. What that is saying is that perhaps the cantrip that they got stuck with is something that's only got an offensive purpose. And they've just never been in a situation where they needed to try and use it. And so they don't know that they can cast it. It's like
Interesting. I like that.
if the only spell that you could cast is Acid Splash, I mean, I can definitely think of instances where Acid Splash could be useful, or like Poison Spray, or Frostbite, or Firebolt. I can see instances where those could be used. They would be very thin, very niche applications.
Poison spray is
But
absolutely your exterminators. It's keeping the termites out of
oh
the
yeah,
house.
oh yeah, they're the Terminators.
The Terminators?
Yeah,
Okay.
I said what I said.
Okay, fair.
That's
Fair. They're coming for you.
that may not be the word I was looking for at the time, but
But
I
it
said what I
fits.
said. They haven't stopped yet, so they're not ex-terminators yet. Uh,
Okay.
they're still actively terminating. But yeah,
Come with me if you want to live.
because those sorts of offensive spells would probably be the ones that would certainly be
Highly
controlled,
regulated. Yeah. No, I
highly
totally.
regulated. If you were the person who manifested the ability to cast Firebolt, you were getting drafted. You were going to have compulsory military service
Yeah.
because they want the people who can throw fireballs to be in the
Yeah.
military.
I can see that. The other thing I can see, did you ever play Dragon Age?
I tried to play Dragon Age once.
Okay. Um,
I bounced off of that one.
fair.
The mechanics of it were kind of wonky for me.
Fair. I can understand that. So within Dragon Age, of course, I started as a magic user because that's what I'm going to play. And within that, they had, if you weren't able to pass your, basically like your magic exam, your harrowing, or if you did certain things like blood magic, they had what they called gentling, and they would sever your connection to the magic, and it made you, how do I phrase this? I want to phrase this properly. It made you devoid of any feeling, made you very robotic, almost like some sort of
Like a
intellectual
lobotomy.
damage. Yeah, very much lobotomized. Or even going into the Wheel of Time series where they would, I forget what the
Oh
phrasing was
yeah.
for, where they would bind the magic in men because if men had magic, they tended to go insane and go on destructive rampages. And so they'd find any kind of man that showed any magical aptitude at all and immediately sever them from their magical connection. So maybe that is something that happens. Maybe that is a punishment for using these offensive spells outside of, government proxy or government allowance.
Yeah, I think that the use of offensive magic would be equivalent to the use of a weapon
Okay.
in the legal system. I think that attacking somebody with a firebolt would be the same as attacking them with a crossbow. It would still be assault with a deadly weapon, and you would still be charged with murder if you managed to kill someone with it.
Okay. So I like this. We're getting our base kind of our cultural background, and a lot of
Yeah.
this is going to be background that your players may never fully run into, but it does give a sort of vibrance to your setting. So again, we've got a culture kind of building up around this magic, who uses magic, how it's used, how frequently, what's it used for, how do people react when they see magic being used around them. And so, yeah, like I said, most of these are going to be used in professional tasks or some sort of building or artistry. We do have some prohibitions that we've come up with. We're definitely using magic for entertainment. And you've mentioned several times, though, those that are able to cast this magic in a more potent sense are going to be possibly conscripted. So, how frequently do you think being able to cast something, say, first to third, first to fifth level, how often would that happen?
That would probably be fairly rare. I would say that only like half of the population can cast more than one cantrip for starters.
Okay.
So like let's just say that 75% of the population knows that they can cast magic.
Okay.
100% of the people are capable, but that 25% they don't know that they can cast magic because the particular cantrip that they have has never been something that they've needed to reach out and grab.
Okay.
And so let's say 50% of the population is capable of casting multiple cantrips.
Okay.
And let's say 15 to 20% are capable of casting first level spells.
Okay. So with these numbers you've come up with, you're kind of mirroring what education levels look like within the United States. Like everyone
Yeah.
has access to public education, but 75 of us around there probably graduate high school. Within the United States, I think it's around 50% have a 4-year bachelor's degree, and like a master's degree is 10%, and I think like a doctorate or some sort of quote quote professional degree is closer to 1 or 2%. So, and again, that would mirror just fine. So everyone has, and again, where these are being used professionally, maybe that's part of your application is you have to be able to show your aptitude to cast a spell, and maybe certain areas they want you to be able to cast more than one spell or more than one cantrip, and before they even bring you in to start.
Right. Yeah, and I would definitely say that things like being a town guard. You could get a job as a guard with only being able to cast one cantrip, but if you ever wanted to make sergeant, you have to be able to cast more than one. If you ever want a command position, if you ever want to get promoted up the chain of command, you have to demonstrate that you can cast more than just the one cantrip.
Okay.
And so like that would also translate into the guilds. You have instances where a blacksmith might be able to cast, say, mending to repair objects, repair things that come in broken, or they might be able to cast control flames to manipulate the temperature of their forge to keep it at an ideal temperature for whatever metal they happen to be working with. But you're never going to make it past journeyman if you can't do both.
No, that makes total sense. I think the Chaos Muse who spoke to me has whispered something within the ear. And so I'm going to present this for our world and let me know what you think.
Okay.
Because magic is so prevalent, people don't read. Because again, you can communicate largely with dancing lights, prestidigitation, thaumaturgy, things like that. You could have basically like magically giant glowing neon symbols and whatever word that would communicate through people. People don't read, but certain people that do can still write spell books, spell scrolls. And so the society itself discourages reading to keep that separation of levels within society. So a person can't just pick up a spell tome and suddenly, bam, they know 5 spells.
See, I think that the way that the magic works, even if you're able to read the spell, if you don't have that capability,
Okay.
it's just words on a page.
Okay, so you have to have that spark to be able to push it.
Yeah, that you have to have a sufficient access to the font of magic. And if you have sufficient access, you can expand that.
Okay.
Kind of like if you have a leak in a pipe, right? And it's just dripping.
Right.
That drip may remain a drip for forever. But if the hole that drip is coming out of is large enough, then the volume of water coming through it will eventually erode it and make the hole bigger.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, so again, it'd be like physical aptitude. If you train with something better, obviously become stronger, faster, better.
Yeah.
And we summon Daft Punk.
And it may be a thing where everybody is capable of doing that. It's just that the people who only have access to a single cantrip have such a huge amount of energy that they have to try and force through to get to that second cantrip that they're just not capable of physically exerting enough magical pressure to overcome that hurdle.
Okay, I like that. So with magic as we've built it in this culture that we've built, obviously, you know, our player characters are going to have access to magic. They're probably going to have higher access to magic. Is our culture dependent and reliant on magic? Is there a way to turn the magic off? Is there a problem that could arise with this magic? Or is it just kind of your baseline setting, magic's everywhere, and other stuff happens?
I think that you're still going to have all of the various issues that you're going, the stratification issues and whatnot that you have in a society. Society is going to do what society does. Society likes in groups and out groups. Society likes stratification.
Yes, unfortunately.
Despite our best philosophical attempts, society keeps stratifying.
Yes.
It's just what we do as a species, unfortunately. Despite all of the ideals that we have that wants to make a free and egalitarian society. So you're going to end up having a similar stratification happen. It's just that the societal pressures that create that are going to be different.
Okay.
It's not going to be like our current modern social stratification that's based on wealth or skin color or nation of origin. It's going to be based on your magical aptitude.
Okay.
So the people who are going to be either no magic or one cantrip are going to end up getting shunted down to the bottom of this social ladder. And the more magic you have, the higher up the social ladder you're going to be able to climb. And that is going to also breed the sort of animosity that you end up getting where you have somebody who is born to 2 one cantrip parents or born to 2 no cantrip parents who is suddenly able to, as a toddler, cast, Melf's Acid Arrow.
Oh, that would be such a horrible point of growth and self-discovery is like,
imagine being a parent where you and your spouse, neither one of you have knowing access to magic, and you have to try and raise a toddler who is capable of casting first level spells.
Yeah.
Toddlers are already inherently chaos goblins.
Yeah.
Imagine what would happen if they are able to cast like full-on magic spells, not just cantrips, full-on magic spells. I mean, how do you discipline a child?
Yeah, right?
that is capable of warping the fabric of reality.
Especially if it's a violent or offensive spell, because
Mm-hmm.
they start throwing a temper tantrum and they just start slinging magic around all willy-nilly.
Or even worse, what if their school is enchantment?
Ooh, I love it.
What if they have like charm person as their initial
Nice.
spell? I mean,
They literally would have daddy wrapped around the finger.
I can absolutely picture like the folk horror story that is birthed from these two parents have a small child, and the child is able to just magic them into letting this child do whatever it wants to do, and they are powerless to stop this child from doing that. And every time they get done, when the child is done and toddles off to do whatever chaos gremlin thing it's going to do next, and the spell wears off, you realize what has happened, because that's one of the things with the spell is, as an after effect, you know that you were under the effects of this spell.
Yeah, so another cantrip like that would be friends. Even if that was a cantrip spell,
Yes.
that would be
Absolutely.
Yeah, so again, so we have a bunch of springboards now. One, you could just be a party of players that just have your one cantrip spell, or maybe you have no cantrips and you are out looking to see, figure out a way to develop and expand your magical abilities. And as your characters level up, obviously they're going to gain more power and they can develop their characters this way. A story hook is perhaps the de facto prince, mayor, princess, queen of this town was a child like that. And I'm kind of reminded of, I think it was Twilight Zone, it may have been Outer Limits, but the story of the kid who could make things happen with his mind, and everyone was terrified of this child, and he could read thoughts. And so everyone's just catering whatever this kid wanted, they would give it to him, because like if they didn't, he would like teleport them somewhere else, or make their chair break, or cause them to have a car crash or whatever, just through his telepathy. And so what if this town is not enraptured, but like either enthralled or just more or less held prisoner by this child that has this ability that can completely overwhelm anybody in the village or town?
I think at that point you end up, because we are saying that like 15 to 20% of the population is capable of first level spells.
Yeah.
That is still a fairly sizable chunk of the population. That's, 1 in 5.
Yeah.
And I think that there would probably be a decent portion of that population that their calling in life is basically to go and serve as nannies to these people who birth children who are magically more powerful than them.
I could see that.
Their whole calling in life is to go and provide that sort of
restraint.
Discipline.
Yeah, restraint and tutelage. I'm thinking kind of like a boarding school.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you could definitely do it as a boarding school where, you ship off your child to this place where they are controlled. But I think that there would also be probably more for the wealthier class.
Okay.
That there would be like Mary Poppins, someone who comes and lives in your house and is going to be this tutor, not just teaching them how to control their magic, but how to control their urges to use their magic to selfish ends. They're providing both magical and social discipline.
Okay, yeah, I definitely like that aspect of it. I do like that a lot.
Yeah, because we still have to maintain that this is a society.
Right.
This is people who are interacting with one another to a beneficial end.
Yes.
And so we have to have people who are capable of controlling the wild cards in this system so that society doesn't collapse.
Right. I was throwing out like adventure hooks for, okay, what if this happens? And this would be the point of, we'll call it the point of impetus for the party, like what's actually going to get the party started and moving on whatever the quest may be.
Yeah, I think the way that I would implement that particular plot point would be the adventuring party is approached by someone from this town where they don't have someone like that.
Okay.
And this child, this 4, 5, 6-year-old child is running rampant in the town and is capable of doing whatever they want because there is no one in this small town capable of stopping them from doing that.
Okay, yeah, I like that. And that kind of reminds me of the old stories of Helen Keller, where unfortunately she was born deaf, blind, and mute, so they had no way to communicate with this child. And from my understanding, I think her family had at least, a sizable amount of money because they were able to hire private tutors to come in. But
Right. Yeah.
for the life of me, I can't remember the name of her teacher. But she
Oh,
came
yeah.
in, and that was the first thing she had to do was she had to teach Helen, restraint, and she couldn't just do whatever she wanted. There were rules that she had to follow, and establishing that hierarchy and that pecking order was the first real challenge.
Anne Sullivan.
And Sullivan, yeah.
I had to look it up because it was going to bother me if I didn't.
No, I like that. I think that would be a good, and again, taking this off, even strictly from a D&D standpoint, but something from more of a kids on bikes standpoint or, Powered by the
Oh, yeah.
Apocalypse or other things, having this child that is currently running unchecked can make it kind of interesting. And again, you can adapt high magic to these other systems as well.
Yeah, and talking about kids on bikes, using kids on bikes as a thematic approach to the game, not as a mechanical approach to the game, having your party be a group of 0-level teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
You just have them say, okay, pick a cantrip.
I cast Angst.
Yeah, you pick a cantrip. That is the one cantrip that you have. And the party is, you're just a group of teenagers running around causing mischief, doing what teenagers do. You're just a little band of ruffians.
No, I like that. I like that idea. Pick a cantrip. It can't be an offensive cantrip, so it can't be Firebolt or Acid Splash.
I mean, it could be.
If you wanted to, I was going to keep it with
honestly, what I would do is I would put, I don't recall exactly how many there are, but I would put them on a table and you would roll at random.
Okay.
And you would randomly get one cantrip.
Okay, I want Icy Touch since this is kids on bikes. I'm casting ice under everyone's tires.
Looking at the list, most of these I can think of a legitimate use for them, even if it is, primarily an offensive spell.
Yeah.
Things like True Strike.
Yeah.
True Strike, as it is formatted in 5th edition, is an absolutely terrible cantrip. Do not take True Strike. If you're going to have somebody with True Strike at the table, run it the way it was run in 3rd edition. In 3rd edition, True Strike just gave you a plus 20 on your next attack roll. So the way that I run True Strike is it is a touch range spell, and the next attack that the target makes before the end of your next turn is made with advantage. It's not dependent on a target that you can see in 30 feet. It allows you to imbue an ally with this ability. You don't have to just use it on yourself, because the way that the action economy of 5th edition works, and I'm going on a rant, I realize True Strike is often a wasted turn because you will cast it on a target and then either that target ends up getting out of range or dying before your next turn comes up. So you aren't able to take advantage of it. Whereas if you make it a touch range spell where you either cast it on yourself or you cast it on an ally within 5 feet, the next attack that the target makes before the end of your next turn is made with advantage. It makes it so much more user-friendly. It makes it so much better.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, Blade Ward would be a really good one to take. You're just not going to get scuffed up as much, would be wonderful. Infestation would be amazing if you wanted to cause chaos. Oh, that would be so much fun.
Yeah, I think Infestation is one of those where it would be difficult to find a good non-combat application for it.
Pure chaos. Not combat, you're just messing with people. You're making everything about them miserable.
Honestly, I think for Infestation, that would be somebody who is clearing land, like clearing out brush.
Okay.
You use Infestation to summon the various insects and stuff to, whether it is to kill the plants or once you have cut everything up, you call an Infestation to call the burrowing insects to take care of the stumps so that you don't have to root them out.
I could see that. Yeah, that would
things
be
like
news.
that.
Yeah, that would make sense. Honestly, depending again, talking about, farmers and fields, like you could call a quote, quote, infestation of like mantids or ladybugs to consume the pests and use them as a natural pesticide or pest
Yeah.
control, which would not be a terrible idea.
Yeah, if you can control what shows up when you cast it, absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the few that I cannot for the life of me think of a legitimate non-combat use for is Eldritch Blast.
Yeah, that's
And Eldritch Blast is one of those that it seems to me would be one of those. It's a desperation cantrip. It is not something that people are born with the ability to cast. It is definitely something that someone who thinks that they are incapable of casting magic makes a deal with an entity so that they can cast magic.
yes.
And this is what they get.
I was thinking the exact same thing. That said, depending on some of the invocations you can put on Eldritch Blast, I mean, obviously you have things like push, so you can move things. I'm trying to think of some of the other.
You don't get invocations as a 0-level commoner.
Oh, okay.
You just get the Eldritch Blast.
Oh, I like it. Yeah. So this is absolutely something that Magnus Shadowcaster would have done.
Oh, absolutely.
If he was a 5e warlock instead of a 3e warlock.
Absolutely, yes.
That would have been so bad.
Yeah. But there's a few of them, like this is one that I wasn't real familiar with because I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the splat books. There's one from Explorer's Guide to Wildmount called Sapping Sting that I think this one would be the one that the beat cops use.
Okay.
Or like military police or people like that. So the text is, you sap the vitality of one creature you can see it in range. The target must succeed on a con save or take 1d4 necrotic damage and fall prone.
This is absolutely used by people trying to rig sporting events. Absolutely. But yeah, I could see it be using by local law enforcement too.
Yeah, this is the spell Taser.
Yeah, it is.
This is shotgun beanbag. That's what that spell is.
Yeah. Message would be a great one.
Oh, yeah.
Discrete communications.
Message is the one that is going to get people in trouble in school.
Yeah.
This is the magical evolution of passing notes in class.
Yes.
But it's more than just passing notes in class because you can use it to irritate someone on the other side of the classroom.
Just constantly hearing voices in their head.
Like, you can start, if there's somebody like on the other side of the classroom that you don't like particularly well, and you're sitting there in a classroom doing a test, right? You're taking a test. You can just every 2 minutes you start singing a jingle, and it just this jingle just shows up in their head.
You're evil, Ian. Just saying that's a level of evil. I probably would have stuck to it if I thought of it first, but
if you had access to message, you would probably do that
all the time.
But
absolutely.
On the flip side, in this academic setting, there's another one from Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica called Encode Thoughts.
Yeah, I was trying to find that one. I couldn't find the text for that one.
All right, so this one's a little bit longer. You pull a memory, an idea, or a message from your mind and transform it into a tangible string of glowing energy called a thought strand, which persists for the duration or until you cast the spell again. The duration is 8 hours. The thought strand appears in an unoccupied space within 5 feet of you as a tiny, weightless, semi-solid object that can be held and carried like a ribbon. It is otherwise stationary. If you cast this spell while concentrating on a spell or an ability that allows you to read or manipulate the thoughts of others, such as detect thoughts or modify memory, you can transform the thoughts or memories you read, rather than your own, into a thought strand. Casting the spell while holding a thought strand allows you to instantly receive whatever memory, idea, or message the thought strand contains. Casting detect thoughts on the strand has the same effect. And so that would be another one that would be a way that people would try to cheat on tests.
Yeah, absolutely.
You would encode this thought into one of these thought strands, and then you would try and secret that thought strand somewhere on your person.
Yeah.
And then whenever you got in, you would try and access it during the test. The limitation is you can only have one thought strand at a time.
Gotcha. And they're visible.
They are visible, but that's why you have to try and secret them on yourself.
Gotcha.
You know,
Okay,
try to
fair, fair.
hide them somewhere.
Okay, I like it. I like it.
I mean, it's no more visible than, you
Crib
know,
notes.
yeah, than writing on, you know, on your forearm with a ballpoint pen.
Right. No, I like that. And I think we're onto something I really would like to revisit. But again, going more in depth and looking at cantrips from a kid's on bike perspective and how again, you would use them more as utility versus, offensive or defensive magic. I really like this idea.
Yeah. Just one last thought before we start wrapping up. There are some of these spells that lend themselves to like street toughs, street thugs, like
Absolutely.
enforcers for criminal organizations, things like Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade and Shillelagh.
Yeah.
But they also lend themselves, especially Green Flame Blade, lend themselves pretty well to like law enforcement as well.
Yeah. I could see Shillelagh being the same thing. It'd be like that Billy Club or something along those lines.
Oh yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. But again, too, with that same thing with the Blade Ward, and again, keeping an extra level of you're not going to touch me is not a bad thing to have.
Now, here's one that I'm trying to think of a use that is not purely trying to kill something.
Okay.
Toll the Dead. You point at one creature you can see within range, and the sound of a dolorous bell fills the air around it for a moment. Target must succeed on a wisdom save or take 1d8 necrotic damage or 1d12 necrotic damage if they're missing any hit points.
Again, this would be hunting, wild animal, beast control, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, it would be offensive, but yeah, you're using it to gather food for the pantry.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned that, that would be if you're out hunting and you see the deer, you shoot the deer, you don't get an instant drop. The deer tries to run after you've shot it.
So you toll the dead.
You toll the dead to drop it so that you don't have to track it for 2 hours through the woods and maybe find it.
Yeah, that also would be a non-offensive use for Eldritch Blast as well, would be probably for game hunting as well.
Yeah, it is force damage, so...
Yeah. It's not great, but you could probably show
it.
I like your concept with Eldritch Blast, so that they didn't have access, and so they made deals, and now they're stuck with them.
Right, and it's one of those that, it doesn't matter what entity you go to try and make a deal to get magic. Any entity, whether it is a fiend, whether it's a genie, whether it's an angel, it doesn't matter. You get an Eldritch Blast.
Yep. You cheated. Here's your blast.
Yeah. And like that becomes that badge, that indicator that you then have to hide your magic because of the social stigma of having it, because there's only one way to get it, and everyone knows.
So I have the perfect, wonderfully beautiful, heart-rending, and insidious way for this to work if you pack with the Fae. The Fae gives you 3 cantrips, 2 of your choice, and Eldritch Blast. And no matter what else you can do, they know you have Eldritch Blast. And so they think that you got that first and then maybe somehow develop things afterwards, but you are a pariah because of Eldritch Blast, no matter what.
Yeah.
So you get it, and you get above and beyond what you even wanted, but Eldritch Blast.
I think in that instance, it's one of those where you do get another cantrip alongside of Eldritch Blast, but every time you use that other cantrip, Eldritch Blast just goes off.
Oh, like a wild magic?
Yes.
Oh, God, I love it. Oh, that's so terrible. That is so bad. Okay, what do you want Eldritch Blasting?
It's, it's
the dying Eldritch Blast.
You get friends and Eldritch Blast.
I love it. Oh, that's evil. Oh, that would be so heartrending. Yeah. I love it.
Okay. I'm about out of tea and about out of voice.
Fair.
So I think it is about time for us to go ahead and wrap up here. But I think we had fun.
Yeah, we definitely had fun. I think our initial building up a culture and a society where magic is prevalent, I think we did really good with that and a lot of background to that. And I think coming up and using these cantrips, like I said, in not offensive ways. And like I said, I would really like to revisit this looking specifically at kids on bikes, or maybe even old gods of Appalachia, and trying to work some of these cantrips in and how you would use them or manifest them in a way that's not your typical quote quote D&D setting. So I think this is something we could definitely revisit later.
I think if we revisit this topic, I think the next one that I would like to do is talking about magic items.
Okay.
Because if you have a high prevalence of magic, you may or may not have a high prevalence of magic items, and vice versa. It might be one of those things where common magic items are mass produced, and so everyone has access to very simple magic items that do very simple tasks, or they might just be novelties. You know, simple magic items are just novelties. They're just like the little tchotchkes that you get. Like, it's the snow globe that you got on vacation that has an enchantment on it to constantly keep the snow swirling. You know, just little things like that. And talking about how having a glut of magic items in your world will affect the world building and affect the storytelling that you are capable of doing in such a world.
I need you to read Dungeon Crawler Carl.
I need to read Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's on my list.
Yes,
it's on my list.
Because they cover this admirably, very admirably.
I mean, I've read sword comics, so I'm at least familiar with the concept.
Fair.
But yeah, so I think that pretty well does it for tonight. If you have any comments, suggestions, or ideas, send us an email, undercommontaste@gmail.com, or come and join us on our Discord. You can find a link to a Discord along with all of our social media accounts through our website, undercommontaste.com. You can also find links there to our Patreon, patreon.com/undercommontaste, and our itch store, undercommontaste.itch.io.
If this is your first time listening, we're very happy you found us. You can find our other podcasts on your podcatcher of choice. Just search Undercommon Taste. There you can find our other homebrew episodes, as well as our current story arc, or not story arc, but theme arc, talking about the various dragons and how you can apply them to your settings as well.
So I think we have 2 episodes left after this one in our calendar year. So the 3rd and the 17th, there will not be an episode on December 31st because we do take the last 2 weeks of the calendar year off for the holidays and such. So we might have a guest on next week. We might be doing dragons next week. It's all going to depend on scheduling.
Yes.
We had a technical hiccup where email notifications weren't showing up as push notifications on their phone, so they went 3 days without seeing my emails.
Oh, news.
Yeah, so boo technology. You know, stop trying to put AI on my things and just let the things work.
Yeah.
They worked. Stop trying to fix it.
It's the .com bubble all over again.
It is, and I hate it. I hate every aspect of it.
You're sounding older and older every day, Ian.
I know. Yeah.
Get off my lawn!
Anyway, we're still debating whether or not we're going to do a Christmas-themed actual play this year. It might happen. It might not happen. We'll know by next episode whether or not we're doing it. So stay safe, everyone, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.
Happy gaming.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Undercommon Taste. Our theme song is Massacre Ann, written and performed by Mary Kroll and used with permission. You can find Mary online at marykroll.bandcamp.com or on Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Mary C. Kroll. Our logo is by David Sutherland. You can find more of David's work on deviantart.com/David Sutherland or on instagram.com/Willex_73. We'll be back in 2 weeks, so stay safe, and we'll see you then.